In this video, traders, we're going to look at trading the overnight session. Stay tuned. Hey guys, warm welcome to you. All right, so trading the overnight session. So what is the overnight session? So basically the overnight session is when an index is trading, but the underlying constituents of the index are closed. In other words, if you're trading the Dow overnight, it's when the actual New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, is closed. So the underlying stocks that form the Dow or form the NASDAQ or form the S&P 500 or form the FTSE 100 or whatever it may be, they are not able to trade. So people are trading and speculating on the direction of the index at the next open. Now, there are futures contracts which are open throughout the night. Forget about that for now. All we're looking at is the pros and cons, some little tips and tricks for trading the overnight session. So this video is sponsored by Core Spreads Australia. There's a link to those guys in the description below. Go and check them out. And one of the things we're going to look at is, if we're trading the overnight session, what are the things that we need to look for and what's the best vehicle for doing that? Because sometimes it's not always so obvious. So if we go and log on to the Core Trader 2 platform now and we see Wall Street, which is basically the Dow equivalent, okay, and we look at that and we say, when's it trading, what time's it trading, and what are the spreads? So it trades from midnight till 9:15. That's a most chunk of time. That's the biggest part of the trading day. Then it closes 15 minutes, opens at 9:30 till 10, then from 11 till back till midnight again. So there's some little breaks here, but ultimately, really, for all intents and purposes, it trades throughout the day. It almost trades 24 hours. Yes, there's some little breaks in here. We'll talk about those in a second, but theoretically, it's 24 hours all the way through till Friday evening. Now, the thing to point out, guys, is that the spread is variable, and this is the same for any broker, regardless of what you're trading. But on the Core Trader 2 platform, you can go and you can see it. Actually, if you go on Core Spreads Australia's site, you can see the market information spread for yourself. But it varies specifically from the Dow in this example from 1 to 4 points. So really, when the underlying is open, i.e. the constituents of the index are open, for me in my time zone, that's 2:30 till 9 o'clock. That's when the New York Stock Exchange bell rings, opening bell and closing bell. Then you're going to have the tightest spread, and then it starts to widen out throughout the night when the liquidity is lower, when there's no underlying open, and then it starts to narrow up again as we come into the European session, as more volume starts to come in. So that's something to be aware of, because if we're trading the overnight session, we're going to pay a little bit more spread. Now, granted, there's some really serious moves overnight. There's lots of news flow that comes out overnight, potentially. Other news from other countries that are hitting, let's say in this example, the US economy and potentially repricing the Dow. There's stuff that is happening overnight that makes you want to capture that opportunity. Potentially capture that opportunity, but it might not always be the best thing to trade your favorite market. We'll look at why. So the spread varies from 1 to 4 points. However, don't forget, there's always going to be a tighter spread, or a market, should I say, that's open, which will likely have a tighter spread. So in other words, if you're looking to trade the Dow from, I don't know, between midnight and 2 a.m., the spread's probably going to be its widest, okay? But that also may mean that if you go around the globe and look at the other indices, which are all available on the Core Trader 2 platform, many of them are available, go and have a look at them, look on the Asian section, you'll see that those stock exchanges are actually open. So the actual spread is going to be narrower. It might not be 1 point because we're looking at the whole price of the Dow, but ultimately it's going to be a cheaper way to trade potentially than trading the overnight session on the Dow. So you might go, I like to trade the Dow, but actually, end of the day, if the Dow is being driven by what's happening in that country, you might be better off just trading that country and trading it because the underlying market's open, there's more liquidity, etc., than trading a proxy for it. So let's have a look at what will influence the moves and where we can kind of shift our money, or where we can shift our attention, should I say. So imagine this is the 24-hour session. This is the Wall Street or the Dow equivalent. Now, the obvious hours that is driving itself, the underlying market is driving the price of this, is going to be between 2:30, this is UK time by the way, depending on where you are in the world, obviously adjust it for your own time zone. But for me, 2:30 till 9 o'clock, that's the underlying market when it's open. New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, etc., all open between those times. And that is all it really cares about. It cares about the underlying stocks. Sure, the underlying stocks will react to perhaps potentially market moving external news that's coming from around the globe. But when you think about the time zones and who's asleep and who's awake, that's pretty much the primary thing. That's the cheapest time to trade. Now, there's a little bit of a funny spot between 9 and 9:15 when the futures contract's still open, but and the spread's probably reasonably tight, but the cash has stopped there. Now, when we start going into the evening or after it's closed, the influence now goes to what's happening over in Asia. So the market here is more influenced by things happening in perhaps China, perhaps Hong Kong, perhaps Australia, perhaps Japan. All those places is going to have more of an influence on the market. Now, if there's something happening that potentially creates a good trading opportunity, you either go and trade that and go, well, I'll pay a bit more of a premium to pay it, or you go direct and trade whatever is influencing that. So you might say, oh, I'm going to trade the Hang Seng, oh, I'm going to trade the Nikkei, whatever it may be, and go directly to that and use that as the vehicle as opposed to the overnight session on this. Now, it's not to say you can't do that, but it's just an option for you. Okay, now as we start to rotate round into the morning, now we start to get more influence. So the Dow starts to become more influenced, the Wall Street starts to get more influenced by European news and what's happening in Europe. And then from sort of 7 o'clock, and by the way, these are kind of blurred lines as we get to this point. Obviously, when the bell goes off, it's significant, but this is a little bit blurred. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock time. 8 o'clock is when the FTSE 100, or the London Stock Exchange opens, and it's also when the European indexes or underlying cash indexes are trading. That's when we're going to kick in and get influenced by Europe. But 7 o'clock as well, we've got a little bit more influence coming from London and from across Europe. That's more influencing the Dow futures now, which is then going to affect the underlying Wall Street products you're trading on Core Spreads Australia. So 8 o'clock until 4:30, we're pretty much now solely under European influence. DAX, FTSE, all the big guns in Europe are driving the money, and they're moving based on their underlying. So people are buying Vodafone, people are buying Tesco's, people are buying all the stocks that we have underlying, and that's causing the movement in the European indices. So that ultimately is going to affect the Dow futures and throughout your Wall Street. So when you're in that zone, it's still technically the overnight session because it's early in the morning for the Americans. However, you might be better off if you're trading something that's moving, an underlying market like the DAX, like the FTSE, because that really is the driver, and this is only responding to that. Now, I'm generalizing a bit here, except that's trading, guys. We don't know always going to be the case, but very often, if the DAX is ripping off to the upside, FTSE's ripping off to the upside, that's going to drag the overnight price of the Wall Street higher. And so you might want to go direct to that. And then as we come into 2:30, that's when the bell goes again and we start again, and all the influence for that lives only in the underlying Dow 30 or S&P 500 or Nasdaq 100, whatever we're trading. And of course, we've got a little bit of a funny blip here. 4:30 is when the UK session closes. The UK bell goes on the London Stock Exchange. So then the influence kind of is a little bit mixed between there. If something's really driving things, then it might affect it, but then after that, it's purely US-based influence. So you can see how the influence kind of rotates around the sun, if you like. And something to think about that, if you're trading the overnight session, maybe consider hitting something that is actually open, or stock exchange actually open, to benefit from a tighter spread, like the DAX. With the DAX is open 8 o'clock, nice tight spread on that, going to be tighter than trading the Wall Street or the FTSE, etc. Something to consider. So if you like to trade the overnight session, you like to trade different trading hours, you like to take advantage of opportunities, trading opportunities potentially present themselves in the early hours of the morning, then maybe have a plan of which one you're going to trade. All right, guys, that is trading the overnight session. This was sponsored by Core Spreads Australia. You want to check them out, we've got a link to them in the description below. Take care. Bye-bye.